ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Liberals Gone Wild segment, and we have our guest here. And introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Cameron.
Cameron, where can we find you out on Instagram if you want to share that information?
I don't have an Instagram. My phone got totally messed up, so I'm not on Instagram. But
Copy, copy.
it's fine. I don't need no shoutouts.
All right, so Cameron here actually brought us a great topic that we'd like to discuss: freedom of speech in schools. Now, it's
Yeah.
relatively understood here that your rights don't apply in a private school because that's a different setting. It's a private setting; you abide by their rules. But in a public school, do your rights apply? Yes, they do. Cameron, let's get into it.
Well, to start off with the story, a kid had gotten in trouble. He's a conservative. I've talked to him, and he said he was a conservative, and he was saying in the classroom that SJWs ruin the world. And so the teacher got mad at him for saying that, sent him to the office. And as he was, talking to the teachers in the office, he came back and he said that um, the administration in the office said that you don't have your freedom of speech right on campus. And so we all kind of just went like, what the hell? Like, why not? And then our math teacher got up and said, you don't need your First Amendment right to learn. And
Now,
so that's the whole story. That's what happened.
Cameron, you go to a public school.
Yes.
Right. So technically, this is a violation of your rights as an American citizen.
Obviously. It's I think it's ridiculous that we don't have a freedom of speech on a public school that our parents paid for, tax dollars pay for these
Definitely.
public schools. And I don't understand how they can say that we don't have freedom of speech when we have a government class where we debate in that class about politics and current events. Isn't that freedom of speech? I wear a Trump hat. That's freedom of speech. I don't understand what they're getting at.
And this is a high school, not a college or university.
Yeah, this is a high school.
Now, so that's where the whole "you don't have freedom of speech" here, that kind of gets tricky, because depending on the teacher, he can just say what types of freedoms you have. Is it because the student was conservative, or what if the student said that Trump supporters are ruining the world? What if he has
I
said the same
I
thing?
really I think it's that she got offended by it. She didn't like what he was saying, which first of all that doesn't give you the right to get in trouble. If I say something offensive to someone, that's not against the law. And I think if he said something that was disturbing the class and probably offended people in the class and made them get off task from what they were doing, yes, I can understand that. That's disturbing the class. It's not about what he said, but it's about what he's doing to the class disturbing it. He didn't disturb the class. He said that to a group of his buddies in the back of the class, and it was between them, and the teacher happened to walk by or happened to hear what he was saying and got mad at what he was saying, sent him to the office for the things he said. No one in the class got off task by it. And I mean, it'd be a whole nother story if he shouted out, SJWs ruin the world. It doesn't matter what you shout out in the class. You shout out in the class. You can get in trouble for that. So I don't think it was for what he. I don't think it was that he was disturbing class. I think it was she got offended by it and got butthurt and sent him to the office.
So the teacher is a female,
Yeah,
and the teacher was the one that said the teacher was the one that said that there was no freedom of speech.
the people I don't know exactly in the office in administration at my school who said it, but they said that you don't have a freedom of speech on campus. And then my math teacher proceeded to say that you don't need your freedom of speech to learn. That's what she then said.
Wow. So how do you say that this is like a classic case of just of liberals shutting down opposing ideas
Yeah,
and thoughts
exactly.
and stuff, and when you start doing that, it it only allows a certain type of idea and or ideology and any beliefs into the school. where if it was the case, which I'm pretty sure, that it was because of what he said, or what he said because the teacher didn't like it. The students said, white people are the problem, or Trump supporters are ruining the country, ruining the world. The teacher, I don't think the teacher would have done anything, and it's just, and we're seeing cases of just of this type of thing happening all over, especially on college campuses, where in Berkeley is what they're shutting down free speech, and they had Free Speech Week at Berkeley, and that got hijacked by the left.
You make a good point about them shutting down opposing ideas. The funny thing is I wear a Trump hat to school. You know, the big USA and then on the side it says 45, and on the other side it's a flag. I wear that, and people have called me Donald lover. They've called me a Nazi. Now, I'm being dead serious. This is God honest the truth. I get harassed and I get, looked at and I get talked to. Why are you wearing a Trump hat? Ew. You're wearing a Trump hat? And one kid in the back said, Donald Trump's I don't quote me on this because I don't know exactly what he said. People have called me Trump lover. They've, given me looks. They've looked at me and harassed me about it just because I like Trump. They call me a Nazi, and this is dead serious. Like, people actually call me these in my school. And so one kid in the back of my class saw that I was wearing the hat and decided to say that Trump is a fucking idiot. Trump is a fucking idiot. He's a racist. He's a fucking coward. And he was saying this out loud. Everyone could hear him. Trump is a fucking idiot. He's a fucking racist. The teacher didn't do anything. He didn't send him to the office for cussing, disturbing the class, anything. And he was, calling out our president, saying he was an idiot. He was a Nazi and all this shit. And I get harassed at school, and nothing happens to the people that harass me. And I don't harass anyone else. But it's when they harass me because I have a Trump hat and I support Trump, then it's okay because I'm a conservative. You can harass people who like Donald Trump.
I actually have a quote here from Supreme Court case Tinker versus Des Moines. In regards to freedom of speech at school, the Supreme Court states, and I quote, "While students and teachers do not, quote, shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression, students and teachers do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. However, your freedom of speech in school is not complete freedom, but by that they mean a teacher cannot claim a right to teach anything they choose, and students cannot demand that incorrect answers be accepted as correct. The only time your freedom of speech may be undercut in a school is if it genuinely disrupts the learning process, which expressing your political beliefs does not disrupt the learning process unless you're being obnoxious about it and it's off topic."
I agree with that.
Now, this is a Supreme Court decision on the issue. So, first of all, your teacher really needs to do her research.
Obviously, they're liberals. They don't do research.
Oh, of course, I forgot that's against the liberal doctrine.
We have he's a government teacher, economic teacher. We actually have two, but one of them is biased. He doesn't like Donald Trump. He likes socialism. I took a summer school class with him, and it wasn't even about economics. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about government. It was just about the Revolutionary War. And I know there are some politics, but he was talking about socialism and communism and how, they're fair to people. I'm not going to get into the whole thing to what he said, but he's biased. And I don't think that we need biased government teachers because all they do is corrupt young minds to grow up to be socialist. And that's it. And if you think about it, public schools are ran by the government. The government hires people that are socialist in government classes that'll teach kids government.
It's generally understood that teachers should not be expressing political beliefs in a classroom, below a college level class, because I mean I have a cousin. Yeah, he's young. I have a younger cousin who goes to a public school, and he during the election he was telling me that his teacher was essentially fear mongering to children that Trump is going to deport you, Trump is evil, and he's telling me, he's repeating everything his teacher says. I'm like, look, I'm not going to get into a political debate here with a 10-year-old, but your teacher shouldn't be telling you these things. Because first of all, you're 10 years old. You shouldn't be having a grasp. You don't have any grasp on politics at 10 years old. Second of all, you're young and impressionable. So what she's essentially doing is indoctrinating these children to believe her worldview.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to get back to the bias thing.
Go ahead, yeah.
I hate teachers that are biased. I think if you're going to teach something, you're going to not be biased about it. So if you're going to teach government, you're going to teach about capitalism, socialism, and communism. You're going to teach capitalism, that's a free and open market where you can earn money and gain a profit and become from poor to rich. And then you're going to teach socialism, that you don't get to own your own car, you don't get to own your own property. The government owns all that for you and decides what you can and can't have. They decide what businesses are allowed to be there or not. And communism is that times 10. Like, you are under a dictator, you don't have any freedom. They decide the laws, the people don't decide the laws. And they don't teach that. They teach socialism as it's a fair concept that everyone owns it as a community. When, it sounds good on paper, but it's not good. It destroys a lot of families and a lot of lives. Capitalism is like the best economic system, and it's proof ever since, United States was born.
It is. Every socialist or communist family or communist country has eventually failed or fallen. Now, I've had people tell me things like, what is it? The one in Denmark shut down. Catalonia, which is actually recently about to spark another civil war in Spain, pretty much shut down.
Mm-hmm.
The USSR. People praise the USSR as if it was this sanctuary, yet anyone who lived under the regime of the USSR knows that it was a shit show. When Fidel Castro died, Americans were mourning the death of Fidel Castro. When I personally know people who escaped the Cuban regime who were just absolutely sickened by the fact that they would mourn the death
because they were
of Fidel
brainwashed.
Castro.
That's what he did, was brainwash his people. That's what's so evil
I'm
about
talking about American college students who never experienced the regime
They're
of Castro.
brainwashed. They're brainwashed in thinking that that's a good way to run a country. That's a good economic system when it's really not. They're just brainwashed. They don't look at the facts. They listen to what their professors and their teachers say. Just because your teacher says something, it doesn't mean it's right. My teachers have said some things in my classroom that I went home and looked up, and they were right, but I just wanted to make sure they were, because you can't always trust what your teachers are telling you.
Your teachers,
especially professors in college.
Your teachers are human too. Just because they have a higher, in college. First of all, in college, your professor does not have authority over you. The only thing they have authority over is your grade. There is no referrals, there is no dean's office in college. Your professor is equal to you. The only difference is that they make or break your grade.
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand. For some reason here in America, we seem to put professors on this pedestal as if their word is law.
And you can see all the types of people that claim to that say that they're professors, and like the guy from John Jay who
Like the woman on the plane, she got thrown off, and as they're throwing her off, she's screaming, "I am a professor. You can't do this to me, lady." a, being a professor does not grant you some special privilege. Yo,
And it's-
we're recording right now, man. Thank you.
it's like anyone could be a professor though these days. Like
Exactly.
the guy John Jay that said, you know, the whole thing that we talked about that. Does he even look like a professor type? No. Anyone could be. There was a guy who I forgot which school it was. I'll put I'll put something on it. There was a school, I think it was in California. I'm not sure it was, where there was a class that studied the life of Beyonce. It was a class on studying Beyonce.
Dude,
No joke. And they had a guy who was a professor. It was like tattoos and some guy. He looked like those hipster coffee house going places. It was just
Let me tell you what.
the guy.
Binghamton University has an entire class dedicated to "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia."
Oh my god.
Anyone can become a professor these days.
And just to a little thing about that is that I think the school canceled the class for the Beyonce one because I think they realized how stupid that is.
Exactly.
I think that was like a major.
But that's what I mean. You go to college, you get a meme degree, and then you
Yeah.
come off acting like all these. I see liberals constantly talking about, "Oh, did you even go to college? Are you uneducated, bitch?" Let me tell you what. Here. So these guys that you rip on, all right. So you might have a meme degree in gender studies, but who are you gonna call when your car breaks down? Who are you gonna call when your plumbing shits the bed? Who are you gonna call when your electricity goes out? Who are you gonna call when you need construction done? When you need welding done? You're gonna call the guys who went to trade school. You're not
Exactly.
gonna call the one with the. You're not gonna call your friend with the gender studies degree. You're gonna call upon the blue collar workers that you so eagerly shit on. Cameron, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for
coming on.
having me. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you on. All right, moving on to our next segment.
Follower writes, "Love this page, guys. Only thing I would like to see is more on gun laws. I love guns. I collect them and love to shoot, but I never hear anything about the Hearing Protection Act, in parentheses, suppressors being removed from the NFA, and other legislation that can help to remove unconstitutional laws like the Hughes Amendment and the NFA in general. Obviously, it's up to you guys. I still love all the content and will gladly support the page. Have a good day, and God bless." So, this came before the shooting happened. So I guess that we actually got to talk about some gun law stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed that part of the segment. So what do you think about that, Dan? We should do more
Definitely.
more talk about guns. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always happy to talk about gun laws and constitutional infringements.
I think it's something that we could really really discuss, and maybe you can come on and we'll have a conversation about that stuff. It seems like it'd be pretty fun. And liberals listening, if you have your opposing views, we invite you to come on, DM us, and we'll go from there. So yeah, this is something I think we can talk about more. We can do some other segments. Have some ideas for other types of segments that might come along. So yeah, thanks for writing in your suggestions, and yeah, something we'll definitely consider. Thank you for listening. Thanks for listening.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our next segment, Liberals Gone Wild. Today we have an interview with NorCal Freedom Fighter, or Kevin. All right, tell us where we can find you out on Instagram.
It's going to be the same thing as my Discord. It's going to be NorCal Freedom Fighter. Basically, from Northern California, we're freedom fighters out here. There's a lot of liberals, and you can't really you can't fucking win out here.
The conservative stronghold in the liberal fortress.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so today on our segment, we're going to be discussing how do I word this?
I would say the legalization and the how do I say it? I want to say
the impact of marijuana
yeah,
on my good
exactly.
Christian suburbs.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say it's like
Now,
I want people to think of it as more of just anything that you can buy out on the street. I mean, it's happening in America and around the world. It's already happened. The legalization, the recreational use, whether you agree with it or not, of marijuana.
that's true. Now, you see, I'm on the. It's good here because we have Brandon who is staunchly against it. I personally couldn't give less of a shit, and Kevin who's pro
Oh no, definitely.
marijuana's.
As much as the research has showed of the medical purposes and benefits of marijuana compared to prescription pills.
Pro
As
herbal
in,
Jew.
yeah, exactly. Anything more herbal, I know it sounds all voodoo shit, straight liberal,
Dude,
Hillary
man.
bumper sticker on a Prius type of shit, but it works. It really does.
Okay, but let's talk about it without the medical part of it, because people
Right,
because
right.
legalization also isn't just for medical
No,
uses.
of course not. Of
It's
course
recreational
not.
use. Okay, so tell us why just regular recreational use should be legal.
Okay, now I feel it as think of it as alcohol or tobacco. There are definitely regulations to it, and obviously, just like alcohol, marijuana is a stimulant in a way, and although it is not proven of any actual deaths coming directly from it, it definitely can have an impact. In Colorado, there are more deaths now of recreational use from car accidents of pot users than before, because people just get in their cars after taking dabs or whatever they do, and they wreck their cars and die.
Smoking a fat doink Amish.
Exactly, and then they fucking die, which is is sad. So you can always
I'm sorry, I wasn't laughing at that. I was laughing at something
no,
else.
yeah, I know, but no, it's true. It's yes, I see that.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I mean, I think it should definitely be treated as like the same as getting slapped with a DUI. You get pulled. You get
Oh
into
no,
your car.
that's how it is running in California. Now
you
we've
get
had
into your car after fucking 12 shotgunning 12 beers, taking a few tequila shots. You get pulled over and you get slapped with a DUI. Now I figure
Yeah.
it should probably be the same thing. If you smoke a fat doink, get in your car and you drive, it should be treated. It shouldn't be a felony now. It should be treated the same way because technically you're driving under the influence.
when it's all circumstances.
Oh yeah,
There's
sure.
I don't know.
Okay, so
Okay, I want to.
I'll have so a question about this. So then, with regulations, then there should be like an age where it should be legal, like alcohol.
Yes.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, so what do you think?
I would say okay, in Colorado, the age where you can go into a dispensary and buy is 18. Just like it was in California before for tobacco. But tobacco in California, you now have to be 21 to buy it.
Okay.
And I feel like it should be the same as tobacco before it hit 21. Because 18, you're legally an adult. I think you should have somewhat freedoms, but I know people are going to
Some
argue that and say
responsibility
21. Yeah,
over yourself.
some people will say 21. It really all depends on if you start at 18 and you see more crashes statistics of teenagers from DUI of marijuana. I think it should be legalized at 21.
Okay. So, do you agree with how alcohol is legal, like at the age where you should be allowed to
Yes,
drink?
yes, I do.
Okay. Now, this is the thing when it comes to this stuff. I think that the laws they have for alcohol is good, and I don't think there really needs to be a big change.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But when it comes to marijuana, you think it should be so 18 or 21, depending on what you said with the statistics and all that, right?
Yeah, I would say what? Honestly, it could be state to state, just like with tobacco.
Actually,
I think it could be a statewide vote what they think, because every state, more conservative states, are probably going to be 21, and more liberal states like New York. I don't know about you guys, because that's where you two are from, but I would say in California it would probably end up. It is going to be 21 in California.
All right.
It would probably be 21 in New York, but there's actually just something I wanted to bring up here while we're on the topic because
All right. So you smoke marijuana?
Yes.
Okay, and how old are you?
16.
You're 16. So even if there were laws, I'm sure that they wouldn't have stopped you from smoking
Oh
at
no.
18.
I mean, no. That's. I mean,
There's always
look
ways
at yeah,
around.
yeah, exactly. It's the same as alcohol
Okay, so then why are there
or
laws?
tobacco. Why are there
Well, then
laws?
why there should be then like the law for it?
Why,
But I'm
why
just
are
saying
there
like if you think that it should
gun
be
laws?
legal, well, well, you want it to be legal, and I'm just saying it's 18, and then so then it should just be with those regulations that you want it at 18 or 21 depending on the state and how they do it.
Yeah,
Right,
and
okay.
because yeah, personally.
But if you think that it should be like that,
It's just to keep it for the law-abiding citizens.
Exactly.
There's always going to be a way to get around the laws. Now, me and Kevin are not law-abiding citizens. I'll just
No, definitely not. I mean, you can think about that as more than one way. You know, California gun laws are as they are, and I'm not gonna say that we can respect them. You know, it's just how
But
could that's
yeah.
that they're taking away our rights when they do that.
like in the general population, laws are going to be laws are. There's always a way around. I mean, look at Chicago. There's
Oh
always a way
God, yeah.
around it.
You know, the tightest gun laws, and they have the highest murder capital in the United States, almost in the world. Or look at Atlanta or anything. You know, all those cities, even though if they're Democrat run, they seem to have a higher murder rate and gun violence rate because of law-abiding citizens are getting their guns taken away. And now these gangbangers are taking, unregistered guns, no serial numbers, and they're doing all that.
So back to the original topic. I mean, it's like if you want it. Basically, what we're trying to get at here is if you want it that badly, you're going to find a way to get it.
Exactly.
and just for the sake of other arguments, when it comes to like with marijuana, with other stuff, and we can have a conversation about this, where guns, that's a right and marijuana isn't. And I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not saying like you think it's a right or stuff, but I've talked to some people where they view it as if, oh, this is, we should be able to do whatever we want. This is,
There's nothing in
America.
the Constitution about narcotics.
And yeah, so I'm here. I'm with this, with me being in this conversation. So you guys
Can I
are
make a statement when you're done with that?
sure. I'm just gonna say that you guys know my views with it, and so I'm here. I'm just gonna be like questioning you about it. Just
No, yeah, no doubt.
things like that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So and also thanks for coming on, because I
Oh,
think
of
this would be a
course.
definitely interesting topic, and I know Dan has said before that we should talk about something like this.
I know it's a controversial topic amongst the conservative community because there are people like me
Definitely.
and Kevin who are more on the libertarian side, and then there's people who are like super like tradcon that want no part of the jazz cabbage. Think that you should be thrown out of a helicopter for taking a puff on Beelzebub's
The old
broccoli.
marijuana. Yeah, you know what? I mean, all these people that love America so much, I don't know if any of them know, but George Washington, our first founding father, he grew hemp back in the day.
Yeah, the difference is that they grew hemp for tools and stuff. They didn't.
For
There
rope
was.
and paper.
Yeah, there wasn't any actual smoking of it, and they really don't have actual
It's the same property,
documentation
though.
of it. But it was different use, so that's not really a valid argument.
In
Wasn't
the
it?
words of Stefan Molyneux, not an argument. Anyway,
Was that your statement? Because I don't want to like go ahead if you have more to say.
What?
If it was
Oh,
that
no, sorry, man. I'm spacing out. No, yeah, you're good.
okay, that was it. So because
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, I was just bullshitting.
all right. So now people talk about people that want legalization of marijuana or that support it or things like that, whether they smoke it or not. But people that are pro marijuana legalization, they talk about like the health benefits. So tell us about stuff about the whole thing about with health, not the medical like the about killing brain cells. People say that it kills brain cells, or some people said that it's not as bad as cigarettes.
look, this one I can actually attest to. it definitely helps with insomnia and headaches.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, besides from those medical, those like positive medical effects, but let's talk about the negative ones because there's a
Right.
lot of
Well,
controversy
you
around
see,
that.
when you smoke a cigarette, you're not just smoking tobacco, unless you roll your own. You're not smoking just tobacco, you're smoking a chemical cocktail of shit like formaldehyde and all other types of shit in the cigarette. Whereas if you roll up a J, it's just it's all herb. Isn't it? It's natural.
Well, there is something that
I mean,
whether you're
granted,
burning something
yeah,
when you
granted,
something's okay.
inhaling smoke, putting smoke into your lungs is not good for your health, period. But it's just one is putting in a chemical cocktail, whereas the other doesn't have cancer carcinogens.
Well, I don't know if you guys know this. There's two chemicals that are in when you smoke marijuana, and there's smoke in there, and then when you inhale it, and they have the same that's in cigarettes. And there's a study that showed that there was 50% more benzopyrene, which is a chemical that's found in cigarette smoke, which gives secondhand smoke. 50% more of that is found in smoke from marijuana, and 75% more benzothracene. 75% more found in marijuana. The benzothracene is the harsh chemicals, and they have it's hydrogen cyanide. That's in it.
Kev, your thoughts? Oh, he's typing.
No, my bad. Okay, my personal thoughts is I don't do anything tobacco, so I just you know what, just like what he was saying, there are so many chemicals and all of this, just anything nowadays. The stuff you eat, you drink, this especially with those cigarettes and stuff. And now, see, when you take away that, I know you're talking about the negative effects of marijuana. There's none compared to that. I will say the most you could do is when you smoke marijuana, if you take a dab, which is oil, you will burn your lungs with the hot heat sometimes. And if you're smoking a joint, just like if you smoke a cigarette, you can burn your lungs from breathing in that hot smoke.
Certainly can.
That's yeah.
But the numbers that I gave you, this is people that smoke regularly, just like with cigarettes, or even if they just start smoking twice a day, and they had a study that it's more concentrated because when people smoke marijuana, they're smoking at smaller butt lengths than a regular cigarette,
Yes.
and they said that it's more concentrated, so you're getting more concentrated chemicals coming from there, and there was
Chemicals of what?
two of them that I just said.
The benzothiazide or whatever.
Are you talking about cigarettes?
Benzothracene and benzopyrene. But there's
And that's in cigarettes, correct? Is
there
that what you're saying?
there's benzopyrene and benzothracene in cigarettes, and there's a study that showed that there's 50% more benzopyrene in smoke of marijuana, and 75% more benzothracene in smoke of marijuana than in cigarettes. And there's a study that by the American Lung Association that there's 4 times more tar from you get your body will get 4 times the amount of tar than smoking cigarettes.
There is no tar in marijuana. It
Okay,
is resin.
do you know what tar is? Do you know what tar actually is when you're referring to cigarettes and stuff like that?
Apparently not.
Okay, tar, and you know how tar is the residue left behind when something's burning and you inhale it.
Yes.
So anything that burns will leave tar.
Yeah, and that's called resin in marijuana.
And apparently by the American Lung Association there's 4 times that.
I would I would like to actually see those documents.
Okay, and you can look them up on the American Lung Association.
Dan, what's your point on this?
I mean, it is a carcinogen, but it's just those two compared to cigarettes, where there's over 2,000 chemicals in varying concentrations. Like you're much more likely to develop cancer by smoking cigarettes than you are by regularly smoking marijuana. That's like the truth of it. Like I don't know how to articulate this right now. Hang on, let me pull up some research here. Cancer rates of cigarettes versus marijuana. Because when you, like I said, as I said, when you inhale a cigarette, you're not just inhaling like natural tobacco. You're inhaling thousands of chemicals that you don't know. Whereas marijuana might have a more concentrated percentage of those two. When you look at it compared to the amount in just a regular cigarette, kind of cancels. It's minimal.
Is it?
Now, there's another thing I actually want to address here. People say marijuana is addictive. Now, there's actually been studies done that show that marijuana doesn't change the chemical composition of the brain, which is what happens during addiction. What you can get addicted to is the feeling of being high.
Which would make you want to smoke it more.
Yeah, but it's purely psychological. It's not like whereas heroin or other hard drugs, they change your body's chemical composition and force a physical dependency.
Well, they have, there's the long-term effects of smoking marijuana. Now, if if there's no actual addiction like the way you're saying, okay, but then it'll make you smoke it more, and then people that smoke it more often, there are long-term effects to this.
There are definitely long-term effects.
And there was a study in New Zealand that they, on 1,000 people from ages 13 to 38, they found that I will say that this was 4 times the amount that average smokers use, and I don't know what the average, like, Kevin, what would you say is the average, the amount of times people smoke a day?
You know what? Okay, it really depends. There's so many different I want to say ways to do it, different how people use it. It can go from, I want to say, taking a hit before work and after work. It can go from 2 to all day, depending, because you know what, some people do abuse it and more than they should, and they're losers and they stay in their house all day and all they
sit
do
in
is
their mother's
smoke weed.
basement
Exactly, and all they do is
eating
smoke weed. But I'm
Doritos
saying,
and Hot Pockets.
yeah, exactly. I'm saying from a working man perspective of people saying these people, they just want to get a little relief, just like drinking. If they don't like drinking after work, it relaxes you.
Okay, so how
So
often?
I would say, oh no, yeah, I was gonna say, how often? I would say probably in a general area is probably 4 or 5 times a day, and that's just taking a couple hits and then going, and that's a couple hits is nothing, in the sense.
See, I'm
Okay,
looking at the study from the Normal Foundation. It's found that frequent cannabis users have a higher risk of cancer when combining weed with regular cigarette smoking.
And
However,
you go.
people who smoke cannabis, studies of cannabis only, epidemiologic studies of cannabis only smokers have yet to reveal such a finding.
And I just want to point out that that most people I think it was most people that smoke weed also smoke regular cigarettes too. So
No, that is a that
That's
is
a
not
myth.
true. That's not true. Most people who smoke marijuana that I know personally, and that's a lot of people, I'm just saying, and just in the general perspective, most of them do not like tobacco, and that's why they say smoking weed is way better than tobacco.
This is from Alcohol and Lancet Oncology, by the way. I'll link the source in the description
All right.
below.
You know, I'm sorry that I might be a little bit spaced out right now. My
Yeah.
you know, my county, my house, you know, not my house personally, but everything around me is just burning, so I'm kind of a little spaced
Yeah,
out.
that might be an issue, considering Northern California is currently on fire.
Yeah, just a little bit, you know what I mean? So I apologize for the
But anyway,
space out, if so.
as I said, no one's going to deny the fact that smoking anything long term does have an effect on your lungs, because
Absolutely.
you're putting smoke into your lungs,
No, definitely.
which the human bronchoidal system is not meant to have smoke. It's not meant to inhale smoke. No mammal's bronchoidal system is meant to inhale smoke. So yes, you're right about that. So Brandon, anything else? Or I guess we'll
no, my mic was off. Sorry, my mic was muted. Um, so just to finish my point of what I was saying about the study in New Zealand, that they found with the long-term use that your IQ drops 8 points after long-term use of smoking marijuana.
See, that's interesting because it definitely does. Like alcohol, it causes the neuron. Like, see, alcohol causes the neurons in your brain to fire slower. Marijuana has a similar effect.
So if we were to take out the the statistics with cancer, would you still say that marijuana is worse than cigarettes with with the numbers that I gave you of that it looks at it's but that's even worse with 4 times the amount of tar.
I don't believe so. No.
So 4 times the amount of tar on your lungs isn't as bad.
Oh wait, what are we talking about here?
That marijuana, it has 4 times when smoking marijuana builds up 4 times the amount of tar on your lungs than cigarettes, and that there's
Wait,
50% more benzopyrene and 75% more benzothiazine, which is which is harsh chemicals. That there's more of them, more of that.
there's definitely a higher concentration in there, but
Excuse me, boys. I gotta step out for just a second. I'll be right
sure
back.
thing. As I said, there's been no definitive proof of cannabis-only smokers having can't being subject to cancer.
Well, I'm not talking
being
about
linked,
cancer.
being linked directly to cancer.
I'm not talking about cancer though.
Well, you mentioned those two chemicals, which are both carcinogens, which are things that which are substances that are known to cause cancer.
Yeah, but it affects it not just with cancer, and it builds up tar on your lungs.
And cigarettes do as well. And you have people who smoke like 3 packs a day.
And marijuana has more than that, and it builds up more tar.
I think like in the long run it balances.
Okay, here I am.
Okay.
How does it balance out in the long run?
Because you don't smoke 40 doinks a day.
This is on
Oh,
average.
no.
This is on average that it's 4 times.
You know, it can be, statistics can show weed in the good light or in the bad light, but in the end, you really gotta think about the consequences of comparing cigarettes or tobacco to marijuana. There are so little.
Actually,
Go ahead.
I actually have something about that exact infographic right here. See, American Lung Association, yada yada yada. Go on. I just need to read this.
Okay, I was gonna say there are so little consequences, although some of them can and do sound, kind of iffy. I wouldn't want that to, I didn't know about that before, but I still think of it as in the long run, I would choose marijuana over tobacco. 10 out
See,
of 10 times.
all right, so I have a bunch of sources here right now. Recent study by the Dr. Hal Morgenstern of the University of Michigan epidemiologist said the factor referring actually to the exact study you're citing, said when you think about people smoking 20 to 40 cigarettes a day for 40 years, they're smoking hundreds of thousands of cigarettes. The exposure that marijuana users get is more than a magnitude of difference less. Another study by the National Institute on Drug Abuse found that even heavy marijuana smokers did not have an increased risk of developing lung cancer. Quote from them here: "We hypothesized that there would be a positive association between marijuana use and lung cancer, and that the association would be more positive with heavier use. What we found instead was no association at all, even a suggestion of some protective effect." Donald Tashkin, a UCLA pulmonary studies, who has studied marijuana for 30 years, hypothesized that the chemical THC may prevent cancer-causing chemicals in marijuana smoke from negatively affecting the body.
And
Quote,
quote on, or can I
yeah, I just
go
have
off
one more.
something with
I just
that?
have one more quote here.
All right, go ahead.
He quoted, "The THC in marijuana has well-defined anti-tumoral effects that have been shown to inhibit growth of a variety of cancers in animal models and tissue culture systems, thus counteracting the potentially tumorigenic effects of pro-carcinogens in marijuana smoke," referring to the benzyl, you know the name of it. "We don't know for sure, but a very reasonable possibility is that THC may actually interfere with the development of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease." Again, I have my sources down below. I can link them. So all three of these studies were actually referring to the American Lung Association.
I'm trying to. According to this study in New Zealand, they said that one joint equals 20 cigarettes.
That's not true.
That I just found that. I'm trying to find
That's
the
not true.
trying to find the study.
I think they need to check their sources on that one, because I'm looking at pulmonary scientists here who disagree, who all seem to disagree about that.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just reading it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a little far-fetched. I mean,
Quite.
that's like the those commercials that say 1 hour of hookah is equivalent to 100 cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's not even comparable.
Well, this what about this then? Because about what I was telling you about the smoke and all that stuff, and there's 50% more and the 75% more other one. That there's 5 times more carbon monoxide that you take into the bloodstream and in your body. There's 5 times more carbon monoxide. That was another point that I forgot to mention.
But carbon monoxide isn't a carcinogen. It is a toxin, but it's not a carcinogen.
We don't have to talk about stuff that causes cancer. Just harsh chemicals.
Right, but the body can process. The body eventually, once you have carbon dioxide coming in, does manage to it brings the carbon monoxide levels in the blood back to normal levels once you breathe. If you breathe oxygen. Like if you've ever been in a garage with a car running and you go outside, your carbon monoxide levels are through the roof. But if you get out into the fresh air, they drop.
Now, Kevin, would these statistics be what you're referring to about how they can make it seem worse?
Yeah, and
But but remember, these are facts, though. With
yeah, no,
Remember, guys, I'm about to consume some dihydrogen monoxide. Pray for me, y'all.
you about to vape.
No, I'm talking about water. Dihydrogen monoxide.
H2O.
I'm kind of stoned. I'm sorry.
But in a way, then it does sound like that there are.
You can use you can use long words and evil sounding things.
I mean, that's how gun control laws are passed.
Right, by me naming chemicals?
No, by long words that scare people.
Like benzopyrene?
Sure.
Well, that's a carcinogen. But as I said, those three, that last source there by Donald Tashkin, a UCLA pulmonologist who studied marijuana for 30 years, said that THC may prevent the cancer-causing chemicals in marijuana smoke from negatively affecting the body.
Okay, but
It's not proven, but it's hypothesized.
All right, I want to go.
That's
Okay, I want to go back to what you guys said about the scary words. So, if those words sound that way, but yet there is actual fact that there's more of it, which is harsh chemicals.
By that,
and
we're
that-
referring to the carbon monoxide thing. That's not really a valid argument because, as I said, if you breathe fresh air, you have nothing to worry as
My-
long as you're not breathing carbon monoxide
Well,
24/7.
my argument is that there's more of it than cigarettes. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. But so then, which would mean my argument would be that there are some things that marijuana does have that would be worse than cigarettes
As
to a
in-
point. Even if it's minimal, because there's-
heavier.
even if it's something as small as carbon monoxide, because there's people that say that believe that there's literally
from the
zero things that marijuana has. All right, go on.
From the
man.
Department of Health. All right, if people were saying that there's absolutely nothing, anyone who says there's absolutely nothing marijuana has that could cause cancer is just that they're looking at weed through rose-colored glasses. It may not be directly linked to cancer, but there are carcinogens in it. That's a fact. There's no denying that. But I actually have something here from the Department of Health. There is no human or animal studies investigating carbon monoxide exposure and cancer. There is no information that would indicate that it has any carcinogenic potential from the Department of Health. Colorless, odorless, tasteless, and non-irritating, but potentially lethal. Yada, yada, yada. Several hundred deaths due to carbon monoxide poisoning by things such as an unvented space heater, warming up an automobile in a closed garage.
Now, I want to read some of these long-term effects, and Kevin, I want to get your opinion on this. Now, with the argument
Alright.
that with marijuana being bad, you can say that then cigarettes shouldn't be legal.
Well,
No.
people do say that.
But
No, I think
that
I
could
think it's everybody's choice to do. I mean, people are gonna do whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you
you
have
know
the
what?
freedom
Yeah.
to do what you want.
Exactly. You know what? No matter where you are in the world, even if the government is a piece of shit, you have the freedom as a human to do what you're gonna want to do, no
Mhm.
matter
not if there's laws.
that ends up you taking. Yeah, even if that means you lose your life from it eventually.
But if there's
in North
laws that
But
prevent
laws don't stop people from doing it. That's just the cold hard fact.
That's the truth. It may reduce the amount of people doing it, but you're never gonna totally outlaw it.
Exactly.
But that
There's always
doesn't
gonna
that
be
well
an
that
underground market.
but that doesn't mean that you're allowed to do it because you're saying that you're allowed to do it as a person, but not when there's laws. You're not allowed to. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you're
Laws
allowed.
Well,
are,
just because the
are
government
just are
says
going
you
to be
can't
broken
do
no matter
it.
what. Yeah, exactly.
Just
Because the
'cause the
government
gov-
says you can't doesn't mean people aren't going to.
I mean, Soviet Russia said I couldn't speak out against the government. People did that anyway and got sent to the gulag. Venezuela says I can't have powdered milk, but people smuggle it in anyway.
But then there shouldn't be laws. Then you can make an argument for that. But then he goes into anarchy, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, anarchy is a whole different section. Get like the only anarchy that seems viable is one that holds the concept of the NAP.
But I want to get these long-term effects things to Kevin, and I want your take on it. So if there is something with, let's say, the black community, right, and then there's a whole thing with people in the black community that they show that there's a whole big unemployment rate, and that blacks are committing more murders or things like that, then there should be definitely something to look at there, right?
Right.
Okay. So with these long-term effects with marijuana, with the decline of up to 8 points of prolonged use, and that there's a lot of poor school performance, people that smoke marijuana, people that have their statistics that a large the large no, what do you say the large population of it, large number of it, poor school performance and higher chance of dropping out, and people that have from smoking.
Some people can handle their shit.
And this is the long term effects, and this is common with people that smoke marijuana. Lower life satisfaction, impaired thinking and ability to learn and perform
I don't
complex
know
tasks.
about lower life satisfaction. I feel like that's the opposite, really.
Well, maybe when you're high, and maybe when you're not high, no, you don't really have that much of a life satisfaction. I don't know. This is what it says. And addiction, about 9% of adults and 17% of people who started smoking as teens, but we covered about the addiction thing. But still, being addicted to just being high, that's still,
There's no physical dependency. It's all a psychological.
but still it
dependency.
makes you smoke more, and then it causes these long-term effects. So either way, it doesn't matter. Because you're still going to end up smoking it, because you're addicted to it, even if it's psychologically. Which would cause these long-term
The
effects.
difference is, if you really put your mind to it, you can quit. Like there was no what's what I'm looking for, adverse effects of just quitting cold turkey. Whereas, like, for example, alcohol, if you were to quit cold turkey after years of alcohol abuse, you can't do it on your own. You have to go to a medical facility where you can receive proper treatment, because you will go through withdrawal, and you could potentially die from after years of alcohol abuse.
So, here's more. There's a potential of development of opioid abuse. So relationship problems and intimate partner violence. That's actually pretty interesting. Antisocial behavior, including stealing, money, or lying. Financial difficulties, increased in welfare dependence, and a greater chance of being unemployed or not getting good jobs.
Because these are like chronic long-term users.
And these are people that just use it, not chronic, but people that
That's the issue
smoke it
here.
regularly.
Yeah, chronic long-term users.
So Kevin, do you think that there is something that they should look into?
Into
Fact of the matter is, no matter what, there's always going to be people who can't handle their shit.
I want to hear what Kevin. I want to hear what Kevin has to say about that. What do you think about those?
Fuck.
Okay, maybe
No.
you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't be high when you come on, because this is something to really talk about. You have no idea what I said.
Well, you're saying okay. No, yeah, I'm just thinking back. Hold on. You said more chronic users have. You said problems in relationships.
People that smoked, that smoke marijuana, that use marijuana regularly, recreational use, have a decline a decline in IQ up to 8 points. Poor
No,
school.
yeah, I heard about that. I heard that.
Okay.
I heard all that.
Okay. And yeah, one of them is relationship problems and intimate partner violence.
It's been Liberals Gone Wild, everyone.
Oh yeah, buddy.
We'll see you in the next segment.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's episode. I'm your host, Brandon,
I'm your host, Dan.
and we are the Alt Knights, and this has been the Knights Court. And here at the Alt Knights, we pride ourselves on one thing: real news, real time. Have a good night.